Welcome again, everyone. It's our pleasure to have you here on this webinar, How 2020 Changed the Way We Use the AWS Cloud, the COVID-19 impact, the lessons, and how to best optimize your costs from here. So my name is Michel Zitman. I'm the Cloud Financial Management Practice Lead at Oblivion, and I will be your host today. So I will just take you through our agenda, and after that, give a very brief introduction about Oblivion Cloud Control. And then right after, I will hand over to our special speaker today, Amber Gregorio from our partner, CloudHealth by VMware. And Amber will do the first part of our webinar, and later on, I'll take over again. So after this intro, Amber will explain and give her presentation on the key takeaways of the research that CloudHealth did, and that became the white paper, which is the base for today's webinar. And once she does that, we'll see a lot of data, and I will take over to say what does that mean, at least on my opinion, and what do we take out of this, right? What is next? What lessons can we take out of this? And hopefully that will be meaningful for you, for our audience today. And after that, we will have some space for Q&A. So please, from now on, leave your questions on the Q&A part from the Zoom webinar. And let's see, Oblivion, who are we? So I like to see us as really pioneers in the cloud. Oblivion Cloud Control is a cloud consultancy company from the Netherlands, and we are the most down-to-earth cloud consultancy in the known universe. So we do help our customers to set and realize ambitious business goals by dreaming big, but implementing that with Dutch pragmatism and sometimes even brutal realism. And that's true. We really go and we strive for innovation, and we like customers that are enthusiasts and have big ambitions, but we always have our feet on earth, and we do know that what is possible, what is not, and we do like to take them through this journey in the most reasonable way, yeah, in order to achieve the right results. And eventually, yes, go really, really high. So what makes us capable of doing this is that we are really focused on AWS. We don't do other clouds. We really are oriented on this, and we have a lot of experience. So if we take on the experience we have from our mother company, we have started basically together with AWS, and that back in 2006. So already helping customers to utilize the early services that were available. And because we come from this mother company that is a software company, DevOps is in our DNA. And we are always striving to get the most innovative and services, and to get as high as possible in the stack of the services, right? So what within time and with cloud, we did got some areas of expertise. So cloud financial management is one of them, IoT, analytics, alongside with, of course, the DevOps. And that is not to say what types of projects we do, right? So just domains of expertise. And we have a really, really strong relation with specific industries. Although we do work with many industries, those are some of the ones that we can really point out. And what I like about this, our badge about being a premier consulting partner here, is that we do invest in AWS a lot, and the link I want to make here is that we selected CloudHealth by VMware as a partner because they also have a really strong bond to AWS. They are also a technology partner, the highest level possible, and they have been investing in their relationship with AWS for a really long time. And of course, Amber can say more about this, but there was a reason why we thought that they were the right partner for us. So with that said, I believe that it's time to move on, and I'll pass the word to Amber. So welcome, Amber. Thank you for being here, and looking forward for your part.
Thank you, Michel. I think this is going to be a great topic today. As you mentioned, AWS is a huge part of the CloudHealth business. We actually started out as only an AWS shop. So the majority of our services and capabilities are around AWS. So it's definitely a strength of ours. So let me go ahead and put my slides up on screen here. One second. We're going to talk a little bit today about some of the changes in cloud consumption that we've seen with our customer base. But before we dive in there, let's I just introduce myself to kick things off. So as Michel said, I'm Amber Gregorio, and I work in the product marketing group at CloudHealth. And my focus is on our solutions AWS cost optimization tools. So definitely can bring a lot of insights to you about our relationship with AWS and the investments that we're making there with them. As Michel said, I'm going to be kicking things off today by talking just a little bit about who CloudHealth is, and then I'm going to share results with you from a recent survey we did across our customer base, asking them about their cloud consumption trends during 2020 and how COVID has impacted the way they're using the cloud today. So first, what is CloudHealth? We're a multi-cloud management software solution. Nowadays, we did start out as just AWS. We have over 10,000 businesses that are using our solution to manage their cloud environments. And we do work with some of the biggest cloud consumers in the world. We have over $12 billion in cloud spend that we're managing annually. So a very big customer base that we can draw from and take insights from. We recently added support for Oracle Cloud, and we also support all the leading containers, so Kubernetes and Amazon's container orchestrator services like ECS and EKS. VMware they were a CloudHealth customer for many years before they ultimately bought CloudHealth in 2018. And CloudHealth is now being positioned as the leading solution for cloud cost management across all of VMware's portfolio. So they've seen our solution as a winning approach to managing public cloud costs and are really leveraging our solution across their broader portfolio. And on average, CloudHealth, we're able to help our customers achieve about 25% cost savings in the cloud. And we do this not just by aggregating all of your data from various sources and providing you with recommendations on how to optimize your costs and your infrastructure, but also by teaching a cloud management framework that helps you align your cloud strategy across all of your different teams and departments. So that's what we'll talk about for a second here. This picture is a visual representation of this cloud maturity framework that we teach our customers. We call it the CloudHealth Maturity Model, and it outlines 3 areas of excellence in cloud management. So financial management, operations, and security and compliance. And any organization that's operating in the cloud is going to want to improve their practices in these 3 areas in order to be successful in the cloud. And after we've worked with thousands of different organizations on their journeys, whether they're cloud native or whether they're transitioning from a data center to the cloud, through working with these customers, we've been able to develop this 4-stage maturity model that starts with getting visibility into what's happening in your cloud environment. So you can't really manage or optimize what you can't see and measure. So this is a very important, critical first step for any company that's operating in the cloud, is to get that visibility and be able to understand things like which teams and applications are using up my resources, and are there spikes and dips in our usage, or does it look pretty steady over time? And Are my resources configured in a way that keeps my environment not only reliable, but also secure? So that's getting visibility into your environment. And then after you've gained that visibility, the next step is to optimize your environment across these three areas of excellence. So optimization might include doing things like shutting down resources that don't need to be running, or right-sizing your resources to more appropriate sizes, or perhaps purchasing discount plans that'll save you money on future usage. And if you've gotten this far in cloud management maturity, you're doing better than most organizations out there. We see many companies are early on in cloud maturity, trying to get visibility and beginning to optimize. But even after you've tackled this, there's still a lot of room to improve. So at the next phase of maturity, you'll start automating all of this optimization practices that you developed in the previous stage. And you'll also be developing governance practices or rules that everybody in your organization has to follow when they're running in the cloud. And at this third stage in maturity, you're automating a lot of that. So you can continuously maintain an optimized environment without needing a lot of manual intervention. And then the final phase in maturity is when you've aligned your cloud goals or your cloud KPIs to the business. So everybody's working towards the same thing. So if your business is, of course, concerned about the level of spending in the cloud, then maybe you want to buy an AWS savings plan, and you have to justify it because it's going to cost a lot of money up front, but you know it'll save you money in the long run. And when you get to this stage of maturity, you're able to justify that spend with actual metrics. You can show the business how much money would have been saved in the last quarter, and you can predict what you'll save in the future quarter. So at this stage, the broader business goals are aligned with the cloud management goals. Okay, so that's enough about who CloudHealth is. I want to dive now into some research that we did in 2020. We ran a survey of our customer base. So again, hundreds of thousands of users, tens of thousands of companies. We ran this survey from January through September in 2020. And we aggregated all their data to try to reveal some interesting findings in 2020 cloud usage trends. I'm going to share the highlights of that with you now, but if you do want to dive really deep into all these statistics, we did put out a full white paper with a detailed analysis that you can find at cloudhealthtech.com/resources. Just look for the white paper that's called How 2020 Changed the Way We Use the Cloud. And in this white paper, we break all this data down by region and company size and industry, anything you'd want to glean. So let's look at a high level now at what we found in this big global survey in 2020. At the highest level, total cloud consumption grew by 19.3%. And that was during this worldwide pandemic that changed the way all of us operate, not only in our personal lives, but in our professional lives as well. I would say that this wasn't super surprising to us because cloud usage has been growing year over year for all the major cloud providers. And if you really think about that at kind of a high macro level, it's not very surprising that cloud usage and cloud consumption would increase during a period of time when global lockdowns were forcing businesses and individuals to find virtual alternatives to everything that they were doing in their lives. I will note that we did find some significant month-to-month fluctuations early on in the pandemic, particularly in the financial services sector. But after just a few months, we saw spending levels start to steadily rise throughout the rest of the survey period. So cloud consumption is up. But let's dive a little deeper into that and look at how that cloud budget was actually spent. And here we start to find some more interesting insights. So compute and database and storage services are always your big ones on the cloud bill, and they remain the highest cost drivers. But there has been some movement in each of these three categories. So first, compute spending dropped from 51.22% down to 48.92%. So this might look like a pretty insignificant change, but those tiny percentage points equal millions of dollars. And this change represents a broader trend that we're seeing in compute spending. We also saw storage and database costs flip or reverse. So users used to spend more on storage, but now they're spending more on database services and less on storage. So we're going to look a little bit closer at these three services in a few minutes, but the broader takeaway here is that the way businesses are using the cloud is starting to shift. Your developers are shifting the resources that they use to build their applications. And so you as a FinOps professional or somebody who's concerned about cost management in the cloud, you're going to be needing to think about evolving your cost management and optimization strategy as cloud usage changes. Okay, so if we look closely at compute spending fluctuations in 2020, we see this big spike here on the enterprise line on this chart. So during the month of March, enterprise organizations were spending a huge amount more on compute services. Actually, organizations of all sizes increased their compute spending in March. And that's right around the time you'll recall that restrictions were starting to set in around the pandemic. So businesses were starting to send people home and businesses were starting to close around the globe. But enterprises definitely saw the biggest change. There was a 22% spike in their compute spending from March to April. And if you think about it, that really makes sense. A lot of small and medium-sized businesses had to close, and a lot of large enterprise type businesses were able to stay open as they were considered necessity. So it makes sense that we'd see a big a divergence in the compute spend for enterprises versus mid-market sized companies at this time. We also saw something interesting happen in our customer base. Immediately following the month of March, our enterprise customers started buying a large number of discount plans, so reserved instances and savings plans. In fact, between April and May, the purchase of these discount plans increased 186% in our CloudHealth customer, in the enterprise customer base. So all of a sudden their compute spending went way up and they said, okay, we need to purchase some discount plans to manage that. And our theory is that by April and May, these enterprise businesses were feeling confident that this pandemic was not going away anytime soon. So they felt comfortable making long-term commitments to this increased compute spending to help them save money on this additional usage. And this theory also explains this slight dip that you see on the chart, this 8.7% decrease in enterprise cloud spending levels during June and into July. So that's right about the time when they would have started to see the benefits of those savings plans. So the discount was kicking in and their compute spending dropped below where it was before. Okay, so overall compute spending is trending downward across the board, and we will talk more about why we think that is, but it was really interesting to see this divergence between mid-market and enterprise organizations in their compute spending due to the pandemic. Okay, so let's look at, I said we would dive deeper into the database and storage services. These are the two most commonly used services after compute, and investments in both of these grew slightly in 2020. The bigger change was in storage, and we know that this 5.6% increase from January to September, there was some fluctuation in it across the globe. So in EMEA, we were quite surprised to see that spending on storage services there increased by almost 27%. There were smaller increases in storage spending in the Americas and APAC, but still significant numbers and definitely an increase. I thought it was really interesting to see this huge spike in EMEA, and I'd be curious to hear if anyone on the line has a hypothesis for why that might be. Database spending was overall relatively flat compared to storage, but there was a little bit of variance by vertical. So we saw dramatic increases in spend among technology businesses and those in the healthcare and life sciences sectors. But those increases were offset by some steep declines in, for example, retail and consumer goods, and in telecommunications and the utility sectors. So there was a lot of variance by vertical in terms of database spending in 2020. Storage spending is something that I really want to draw your attention to because we think that this is something that FinOps professionals or people who are focused on cloud cost management should really be thinking about storage costs. This is a cost that usually tends to increase over time. Many businesses don't have a process or hard policies in place to clean up storage that gets old or old snapshots. So over time, the amount of data that you have to store tends to grow and grow. So this is something that you'll want to think about as an opportunity to optimize your costs in terms of cloud storage. Another reason that we may see an increase in cloud storage is because a lot of businesses are starting to build data lakes and do deeper analysis on a lot of their customers' usage. So businesses are starting to understand the value of their data and starting to store more of it over time. So this is a spend that we think will continue to increase, and we'll want you to look for opportunities to optimize there. Okay, I would say probably the most compelling data that we found was a big increase in containers and serverless resources. So there's just been a gigantic increase in our customer base and across the globe in usage of containerized and microservices to build applications. And from January to September, container adoption increased almost 40% in our customer base, and serverless usage was 13.5% higher in September than it was in January. And if we look at this spending, the median spend on containers was about 147% higher in September than it was in January. So this big increase in container spending, especially in the context of a decrease in compute spending, it tells us that many organizations are increasingly embracing these new modern application approaches when they're deploying workloads into the cloud. You know, your apps, they still need compute power, but instead of buying more EC2 instances and virtual machines, businesses are now buying more containers and serverless resources to manage, to handle the compute power they need. And we saw this trend across businesses of all sizes. So median serverless spending levels grew more than 20% for small businesses, 10.2% for mid-market organizations, and 23.1% for enterprises. So this trend is common across any size business, and it was common whether you were cloud native or a company that's transitioning to the cloud. So containers have really become sort of an essential component for your application developers, and cloud teams are going to need tools to optimize their container usage and costs alongside the traditional compute resources that are still heavily used. So if you're shopping for a cloud management solution, container cost management capabilities are going to be one of your must-haves, and Oblivion is there to support you in your container cost management. And that is the end of the data that I want to share with you today from our survey. I do want to remind you that you can view the whole deep dive white paper on our website. But with that, I'll stop sharing my screen and pass it back over to Michel, unless anybody wants to ask any questions at this point. I'm not sure if we have a live line, so maybe we'll do the questions at the end.
Yeah, I think that will be better. But do leave your questions if you have any. We have a Q&A specific session on Zoom, so please just leave it there. If it is something that we can answer right away, we might do that through the presentation. So thanks a lot, Amber. That was really good. I do share a lot of the same theories that you have, and I'm glad about that. We are aligned, and it's good to see so. So let me start sharing my take on the data you shared with us. Of course, I have some additions to that. So would you just confirm to me that my screen is being shared with you guys?
Yes, I see it.
Perfect. So what does it mean? Yeah, as I said briefly during the intro, my objective here is to help further contextualize this data, right? And what the takeaways of the white paper, that not all of them are here, but try to exemplify on real life situations that may be causing this, and of course later on try to give some input on how to optimize from here. So what the first thing that I want to say, and if you can take from my part of this webinar, one thing out of here is we must take action. Yeah, because things are not stopping here. The increase continues. So what we see is that over the years, there is a lot of consolidation for applications in the clouds, for workloads, and a lot of organizations are moving, and it's already a gigantic and huge market, but it's still just the tip of the iceberg, in my opinion. And and some little factoids to corroborate that. Recently, Andy Jassy said that only 5% of the global IT spend goes to public cloud. 5%. You see the size of this market, and you say this is just 5% of the total global IT spend. And maybe that information is based also on how much you pay for IT professionals and all that, but still, that's so little. And on top of that, Gardner predicted last year that IaaS during 21 would grow. That this is information from June, 2020. So pandemic was already ongoing, and still IaaS spend would grow 27.6%. So I decided to just take a look at our customers, right? So with customers that we have been working with, and of course, it's not, we do not manage 12 billion plus annually, but we do have a good size to say to check it out. And just between April 2020 and September, which is when the data of the research was ongoing, the increase was 31.8%. And if we look at the data of almost a year, from April 2020 to March 2021, the increase in spend has been almost 60%. So I think that that's something that says we are not anywhere near the end of the line. Things will not start plateauing right now, and we need to develop the skills to be able to manage this spend. So let's take a look then more on the data that Amber shared with us. So database and storage. So of course it really pops out the fact that storage in EMEA went up, and overall, if you look at the database, it went actually a little bit down. Depends on the vertical that you look at, but I do have a similar theory, right? I think to contextualize this, COVID really forced a lot of businesses to expand their operations and offer a online model, and a lot of these businesses were not even trying to do so, right? A lot of businesses really did only sold things on physical stores, or only through B2B. They were even not in the B2C market, and it just forced their hands. So just to take it really to our day to day, how much more are we ordering food, right? Because we don't even have the option to go to a restaurant or do something like that. And how many of those businesses actually only do takeaway? Most of them are doing some sort of delivery, and that is not happening through the phone, right? Maybe there are still some people that only call to a place that they know for 50 years and they order the same meal every day. But most businesses have some sort of platform, and maybe not their own platform, but they use some sort of Uber Eats, or to bring it to the context of the Netherlands, Thuisbezorgd. And those companies, those entities do have a lot of information to take in. So first of all, you need a user, right? You put all your information there. So this is being stored. And then you have your consumer habits, and this is being stored. And it traces back to what Amber said about data lakes, about companies discovering the worth of this data, right? And all that comes together in this huge increase. To corroborate a little further this this assumption of mine, there is another piece of data in the white paper. If you look at that, it says no matter the size of the business, enterprise, mid-market, or even small, that analytics spiked up a lot, about 50% on average, and it means that businesses are doing something with this data. They are not just storing there. It's not pure waste. It's not just about, oh, it's data that I got it once, I needed it, and it's there, and I don't need it anymore. But yeah, it's just there. They are doing something about with that. So I think that's really interesting to see. And I'm glad actually this is happening, because it is worth something, and it would be just a shame to see this increase and have an assumption that is pure waste and it's just there because nobody cares about it. So to take on, I think we do have more data. The pandemic forced us to do more online, and this generates more data, and companies are indeed storing that. So what can we do about it? How can we better manage and optimize this? And I decided to take a look into 4, if you want to say 5, major AWS services, and give some inputs here on how to optimize. And the idea is not a deep dive into cloud cost optimization, but do some inputs, and we have a little surprise later on. But let's look into this. So when we look at S3, what is important is to say that S3 went from basically 3, and if you consider Glacier, 4 storage classes to now 7. And if you we had all those storage classes have different prices, and they have different usage. So do think of what storage class you need for your data. And not always, it's not because you need a specific storage class at T0 that you will need it forever. So do work with lifecycle management policies. This is the easiest and best way to make use of those storage classes. And this will save money, because also we see a lot of usage on the standard class, and really little usage of the other classes. Now, although they are available, although it is fairly simple to leverage those. The second thing is look at your API patterns. And by this, I mean, your applications usually go and collect this data. They either add data on a certain frequency, or they collect data on a certain frequency, and they back up. There is interaction with the data, and all this has a cost. Yeah, and sometimes, and we have seen cases where the frequency of requests for things that are not event driven. So meaning that it's not somebody, oh, if I click, I want to see this website, it needs to go and retrieve something from an S3 bucket or something like this. If it is something that every 1 hour, I want to do a refresh. So do you need to do it every 1 hour? But 1 hour is fine, but we have seen things that every second, or which is really not necessary, because your data is not going to refresh significantly, at least every 8 hours. So don't try to refresh every 1 second if you're not going to have anything new in intervals of hours. So it's just an insight. And do consider S3 select when you have applications that need to do analytics, because we're talking about this on partial sub data sets of specific objects. So S3 select can be seen as something as Athena, which is allows you to do SQL and perform SQL, use SQL expressions to perform some queries on your S3 data. But S3 Select only looks into a specific object. So let's say you have a CSV that is huge, like a cost and usage report from AWS, and you want to see what happened on a specific day or a specific hour. You can, through SQL expressions, determine that and let your application work only on that specific piece of data on that object. Yeah, without having to retrieve the object, decompress it, take out only what you wanted from that object, only the newer piece or whatever part of it that you were looking for. So it's a lot less work and it's really, really cheap. Yeah. So when looking into do analytics, yeah, into specific objects on S3, do consider S3 Select. Well, moving on, we look into EBS and EFS, so block storage and elastic file storage, so file system. So we have those two, and the first thing, reInvent, at reInvent it was announced the new general purpose volume, GP3 for EBS, and GP3 for EBS is awesome. It's really great. It really, there is no downside to GP2. And basically it almost always compensates IO1. And a lot of times it can even be more efficient than IO2 because it offers a lot of IOPS. Yeah, and it can be as big as it has a really great throughput as well, by the way, and it can go into up to 16 terabytes, yeah, size. And with this, the remark here is that it's very easy to replace your volumes. Yeah, so we have tested it with exception on the day it was announced. We have tried. Yeah, after within the first 24 hours, we have tried to do some testing around the moving from converting GP2 to GP3, and there were a few errors in the very beginning, but that was really only a few hours, and after that nothing happened, no corrupted data. It's just was just failing the operation, but after that it was always successful, and it's super easy, and it's worthwhile because it's 20% more efficient, more cost effective, in the sense that it's cheaper. Yeah, 1-to-1 comparing to GP2. Yeah, so this is the first one. Second, assess if high performance is what you want. Sometimes people just go, oh, yeah, general purpose. Yeah, most of the time, general purpose it suits your application, but it doesn't mean that you need it. Maybe you just need some even cheaper storage type. And you can even do some real cold hard drives. Yeah, so it's a lot cheaper. So just determine if performance is really what you are going for. And after this, we talked about a little bit about snapshots, and snapshots are basically a way of backing up your data. Yeah, and what people don't do is to automate this usually. So they keep doing snapshots of the same volumes, and they do a snapshot every day and every day, and they need to keep it the snapshots because data changes in the volume, and then they might need that a year later, but maybe after 1 year they don't need it anymore. That's the policy. The problem is after 1 year you have 365 snapshots of the same volume. Each one of them is a little bit different, but then you don't need the first one anymore, but it's going to stay there 2 years, 3 years, and then do something about that. So if you have a tool like CloudHealth, you can set up notifications about it. But you have, if you are AWS native, you have DLM, so data lifecycle management to automate creation and retention and deletion of snapshots. Yeah, so do look into that if you are doing a lot of snapshots, and it's going to save a lot of money for you. And when you look into EFS, the first thing is also think about performance. Is it the performance that you need? Are you really going to need to provision throughput, or can you just do standard? And if you are using EFS on an environment that does not require you to have nine nines of durability, then go for EFS one zone, which is great options to dev and test environments, for instance, and it's 47% cheaper than the standard EFS. And this is a really new and fresh launch from AWS. It was just released in March. So do look into that for your environments where you don't need durability. Usually those will be test and dev environments. Moving on, if we look into DynamoDB, which is already on the database side, NoSQL, the key here, the input that I have here is to look into provision capacity and reserved capacity if they are alternatives to on-demand. So you have an on-demand capacity, which basically will tell your need for reads and writes on that database. And if you have provision capacity, you guarantee that you have that amount, but you can plus add to this a reserve capacity, which will allow you to add to pay an upfront fee to guarantee that reserved capacity, and a smaller fee, a discounted fee for whatever you have provisioned. So this is a way of saving if you have a steady demand on your DynamoDBs. So look into that. And when we look into the SQL database, relational databases, RDS, then the first thing is that do select the right DB instance type. There are so many DB instance types available that it's worth checking if you can have if you need more memory bound, or if you need more CPU bound instance types. And this you may find some curious and interesting differences in the price as well. Try really hard not to use licensed engines. And the reason behind this is because AWS has a great negotiation power, but when it comes to licenses, those powers are really diminished. And of course, it's not about this vendor or that vendor. It's just that the license itself, there is not much AWS can do about it, and the price it's really high. So you end up paying for it. So if you can think about it on your when you are architecting your solution, or when you have this ability to ask people that have the knowledge to migrate from the two different types of databases, then try to do so. You will not regret doing it. Yeah. In addition to this, do reserve. But if you have a steady database, yeah, on production, it's really unlikely that you will keep changing the type of instance or the engine, and it means that you can, with very little risk, make a commitment and reserve and save money. And to go back on the previous point, if you reserve a non-licensed DB instance, that will be generate a lot more discount than if you do reserve a licensed instance. Yeah, so proportionally, it's a really great differences here. So, and I think that's what I wanted to share about databases and storages, some tips about how to optimize this. And moving on to our next topic is compute, containers, and serverless. So when we look into this, reasoning, it's similar, right? So the research shows that the spend on compute decline. And the context corroborates it. And my theory is similar to what Amber shared. So the pandemic raised a lot of flags, and then cost became a big priority. We need to reduce costs. Everybody was afraid what this would mean, and the low-hanging fruits started to be explored, and this means reservations, and this means savings plans. So it's easy to do it, and you never did it before, and you see an opportunity. Yeah, save 25%, save 30%, 40%, 70%. Do it. Let's buy it, and let's start saving money right now. And it started like this, and of course you see the spike, and then it starts. The discounts are instantaneous, right? Once you buy a reservation or a savings plan, it kicks in the next hour. So the discounts started to show up, and of course it is partially responsible for the decline in spend. And at the same time, in parallel, you have that increase on containers and serverless, which are inherited more efficient ways of using compute. So what I do find interesting is that, okay, we saw a decrease, an increase here and there. But when I looked into specifically only into compute, I wanted to know, can we get some sort of corroboration that this is what happened? And what I did was I isolated compute usage, and I looked into the number of vCPUs, and there was an increase in the spend, actually, when I saw that. If I looked into spend per number of vCPUs. So the increase between April 2020 and March 2021 was a 17% increase, a little over 17%. If I looked at the cost, yeah, per vCPU compute only. But the increase of usage of numbers was 51%. So we were using a lot more, and the increase in spend didn't went the same on the same acceleration pace. So it means that there is more usage but less spend. Yeah, in comparison, in proportion. So it's more efficient, and I'm glad to see it. So it really helps to correlate this data. So what I have to say here, because this is all good things, right? It kinds of the optimization. It's actually this story. So it's just a push, right? So the pandemic really helped us be more efficient, and it's natural and organic that it happens, right? You see, you don't know, you're uncertain, so let's start to do whatever we can to be more efficient, to save money. So my message here is, don't be afraid, yeah, to commit. Commitment-based discount works, and to start with it, you don't need to spend a lot of time. And the only bracket here that I do is if you really want to go really aggressive, then it does require some more in-depth analysis. But most companies don't do anything. So start doing something, yeah? Take the first step, yeah? Take the initiative. And even if you have a really volatile environment, you do have a baseline of usage. If you're not comfortable doing reserving an instance, then try to do a savings plan. Do a really small commitment. See how it works. You can do commitments of 1 cent per hour, or even less than that. Actually, much less than that. But do something small and see that you can track the consumption. It will be used. Yeah, your savings mechanisms. So don't be afraid to do it, and as you gain confidence, you will see that it's safe to go up until a point where you actually need to go and do that more in-depth analysis. But we'll get to this point. So moving on, then containers and the serverless part. So they are much more efficient, of course, and they offer what I see in terms of the cost part and the optimization part is that they offer a level of granularity that really enables you to use the principle of elasticity in the cloud, which is to say you can really pay for what you need when you use it. Yeah. So imagine that you have an application using auto-scaling and you have big instances. So when you reach 90% of usage on an instance, of capacity on an instance, it spins off another one, and it's this size, right? So you have 90%, start spinning up another one. So you have two now, and this one is using like 10%. So what happens if you have really, really small, tiny pieces, which is about containerization and serverless, which means that you can really scale out and scale in as your demand increases. This really allows the granularity that makes elasticity so exponentially more attractive in this sense. So the other part is that the other hand is that although more people are using it, not everybody has the skills to do so. So the message is either invest in education and in training and get your people good at doing this, because it is really a lot more efficient, or partner up with someone that can really jumpstart you on that track, because you will be able to make savings that will really justify this investment. For those of you that are really more into the technical side, just not to say that I didn't share any technical aspect on this slide. When you look into serverless and you're doing your lambdas, just avoid using recursive code. Yeah, so your lambda functions will automatically call itself. Yeah, and this could lead to unintended invocations, and you pay per invocation as well on lambdas, and this can escalate costs. Take advantage of the execution environment reuse. So basically, you would be caching not in your header, but on a temp, and subsequent invocations of that same lambda would be using that cache and would be a lot quicker. And this will reduce the runtime, and that reduces the cost. And try to minimize your deployment package size to runtime necessities, and this will reduce the amount of time it takes for your deployment to package to be downloaded and unpacked ahead of the invocation. So it will also make it things quicker and require less memory. So again, it's more cost efficient, but that's only for the more technical people in the audience, if you are out there. But let's move on to say that we can cover a bit of everything. We have here our optimization perspectives that can be applied to any service at any point. So right size, which also speaks about elasticity, what you need, only when you need, don't leave things on if you don't need them on. Yeah, and only get the size that you need. You have enough options in the cloud. Second, understand what you're paying for. So are you paying for gigabytes? Are you paying for transfers? Are you paying for the memory that you use? So each service has a different characteristic. So try to understand when you are building something in the cloud. Consumption models. So do use them. Yeah, you have, it's easy. It doesn't require a lot of effort to get started with that. And they do bring considerable savings. A design for efficiency. This is more for the architects and engineers. If you are really good at what you do, if you master the technical part of things, then it's also important to master the cost part of things. So always have cost optimization in the back of your mind. It is one of the pillars of the well-architected framework. And pattern analysis. So continuous monitoring is key. And this is something in general for optimization is not a one-off. It's an ongoing thing. Yeah, it's always ongoing. So what is next? So my take, cloud financial management is no longer optional. Yeah. So it is the element and the model, that maturity model that Amber shared in the beginning is aligned with this. It is something that will give this data that we now have context. And organizations that don't implement cloud financial management will continuously focus on cost, and this is wrong. Yeah, and any cost increase will always be perceived as something bad. So it will lead to unstructured cost cuts, and those cost cuts will end up breaking the development of your cloud environment or your cloud skills. So we need to focus on value and efficiency. Yeah, and in the companies investing on this will be able to measure cloud value, and the adopters will be able to demonstrate the value of the investment. And in the other hand, non-adopters will have to justify spend. Continue, oh, why this? Oh, because we had that. Why? And instead of say, look what I have done here, and it's not justifying, it's just showing the results. And the CFM, Cloud Financial Management, really does enable a realistic measuring system, and it supports forecasting and near real-time response to anomalies and cost bursts and budgeting. And it is ultimately, in my opinion, a foundation to use cloud efficiently. So this is a model that I truly believe, where awareness drives accountability, and then this accountability demands awareness, and it goes on. And I call it the virtuous consumption cycle. And I think this is the bottom line. And to start with this awareness, we need visibility. We also saw that in the maturity framework Amber showed, and that visibility is where I think a tool like CloudHealth can really jumpstart any organization in getting traction into implementing these changes. Yeah, it's a lot more than this, but you have to start somewhere, and you start with visibility. Yeah, so I think that's it for me, guys, and I thank you a lot for listening, and I hope you got something from this webinar. So if you have questions, yeah, now it's time to ask. And if you don't have any questions, just of course, you feel free to do so, but I'll leave this page here. All right. So if you want to get started, you really don't know how, reach out to us. And if you want, you can order one of our cloud cost optimizations deck. Yeah, where we have a lot of tips and tricks on how to start saving. We will send you one for free. Just reach out to us either through the QR code or through our sales, and I will get the link to a landing page where you can send us a form on the chat, so you can order yours through there. So thanks again, and I hope you enjoyed. Do we have any questions?
I like that card deck. An
Yeah,
actual deck, a deck of cards, not a PowerPoint deck.
No.
I think you made a really great point there on the last slide, Michel. CloudHealth is part of the FinOps Foundation. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the organization. It's relatively new, but one of my favorite lines that I took away from a board meeting with the FinOps Foundation was that FinOps isn't about saving money, it's about making money. So really getting people to think about optimizing as a tool for growing rather than cutting costs is really the mindset that you want to have in cloud management. That's great.
Yeah, I think we need to make people shift the conversation from cost to value. And this is the key takeaway. And without having a foundation to do so, without cloud financial management, in my opinion, that becomes a really Herculean task, if possible at all.
Yeah.
So I don't see engagements on our Q&A, and I'm looking at the chat right now. No, I don't see actual questions here. So thank you everyone for attending today. Amber, thanks a lot for your time. Thanks for joining us. We do appreciate and we truly appreciate our partnership with CloudHealth. So I hope you enjoyed, and we'll make this available for the attendees. All right. Speak to you.
Sounds great. Thanks, Michel. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.